Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be looking more at TexTalks, BattleTech, specifically the Mackie. Now, last time around, we got to, what? Freaking starship warships, man! There are things I like in sci-fi. Warships are one of them, and it's freaking cool. Also, why the Aries Convention was a thing. Lau not being the horrible assholes I'm used to, and honestly, people working together for the greater good because losing everything seems like a bad idea, which shouldn't be surprising. I'm just going to leave that one there, yeah. Otherwise, you guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up, and we're just going to jump right in and maybe get some more giant warships because holy shit, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
The other abstention was notable in its astute perception of history up to that point. The United Hindu Collective, then a notable
I think I've heard about
in
these.
the Galactic
They
South,
joined
had no
Davion,
interest
right?
in warfare whatsoever. Largely peaceful, they were deeply concerned
People
that
are allowed
by
to be
giving
peaceful?
war rules, the Inner Sphere would only trivialize war and normalize it, and ensure it persisted as a standard of conflict resolution.
Yeah, funny thing about that, huh? That would really suck if that was how they did it. Yeah. Honestly, it's cool that someone had this philosophy. Also, it kind of sucks knowing they're definitely rolling over in their graves if the planet they're on still is habitable.
Their warning and concerns were prophetic as the convention accomplished just that.
Yep.
War now had rules that most powers agreed to, and with
Because it
that
never
in
got close
mind,
enough to hurt
they
them.
quickly prepared themselves
And it's
to
just a
wage
game then for the big guys.
precisely that kind of war. After all, conflict was now not only legal, but it came with a handy-dandy rulebook. But it wasn't all bad. The conventions did ultimately make war a safer business for combatants and nations caught in the crossfire, but at the cost of normalizing conflict as a means by which to solve disputes. Between the signatories of the document, the practice of conflict guidelines as established by the Aries Conventions ensured a far lower rate of overall casualties, especially among the...
Funny thing is, there's actually a real-world historical precedent for this. Prior to World War I, a lot of the European powers specifically had formalized, regimented ways of looking at war. It's why whenever machine guns were invented, the average response early on was to form lines. I'm exaggerating a bit, but honestly, cavalry charges or just running at it was not unusual. There was just an entire craziness of that. It's also something that was precedent in America too, like during the Civil War, where people would come out to picnic to watch battles. And it went about as well as you were thinking, but people did it because they didn't think that at the time. So having this standardized idea of war is, unfortunately, war is sport, which is kind of what it's going to turn into. Oh god, they're literally doing what the clans did later on, but they're doing it now. I was going to say that this entire series is literally just turning war into a game, and then I realized, wait, this is BattleTech. This is literally a tabletop miniatures game. It actually makes perfect sense. War as a game, because it's a game. The lore perfectly reflects exactly what its purpose is. I kind of love this.
civilian population. As it turns out, indiscriminate strategic bombing
That is
being
a
outlawed
weird
somewhat
looking
lowers the
fire.
rate at which planets burn. And I know it's
Where's it
rather
ramming another
obvious
one?
to us in retrospect, but you must keep in mind that anything repeated
Oh, sorry, no, that's the cockpit. I thought that was the cockpit for a second. It's like, that's weird, and it's like really snub-nose. Okay, that makes more sense, seeing it this way, okay.
on a long enough scale becomes
There's like a Viper from
normalized,
BattleTech.
not
Not BattleTech,
mundane.
Battlestar.
With the Aries
Same time
Conventions
period.
in place, at least legally speaking,
Oh, they actually got
armies
armor.
could no longer glass cities to bend or break an enemy's resolve. They had to go down and visit hell upon them in person. War also now had observers, more or less referees to the great
Seriously?
game,
They actually
who
had
would
official ones?
partially as possible observe the outcome
Huh.
and grant rulings on what was and was not a violation.
They're
War
literal
became a
referees to
game,
war.
and for some in the Inner Sphere, a national sport. The adoption
Some?
of the
Only
Aries
some?
Conventions had many effects on the militaries of the Inner Sphere. First and foremost, warships had been a factor in war planning since their inception, delivering crippling first-strike capabilities with impunity before effectively blockading a world, raining hell from on high, and protecting the transport of troops following for the invasion. With the warship
Now, this is an interesting look, because with how they're doing it, That doesn't look like nukes breaking something. It almost looks like orbital lasers. I mean, I know energy weapons are a thing in BattleTech, but I thought nukes were just more effective. Did they just ever have bombardment fleets like this to glass planets? Because that's what it looks like. It looks like glassing of a planet from Halo. Also, really? From the bay? Yeah, I guess they could, but I thought most of the weapons were actually on the flanks. I could be mistaken. I don't know much about warship designs because they're just not a common thing, but it's so cool.
Ships no longer able to pummel the enemy without violating the conventions. War had to change.
Yeah, it's almost like someone should...
Warships no longer afforded the great advantages they once...
Different model. That looks like a... I know it's not, but what this really looks like is an air intake valve for a jet engine, highly stylized and probably not actually functioning in a jet engine capacity. So instead, since this is probably a warship, I'm assuming that's a giant fuck-off cannon. Whoa! Sorry, I just love these kind of designs. This is just neat. Oh man, does anyone know what kind of ship this was, or if it's a specific one? People have told me if it's a really weird design, it might be one of the dreadnoughts, and there's very few of them, and they were never destroyed, ever, and I'm kind of wondering what happened to them. Actually, that's weird, because people told me explicitly the dreadnoughts were never destroyed. I would naturally assume they were mothballed and just broke down over time or cannibalized for parts, but this is BattleTech. I would love to see if someone's like, hey, we're missing them. And then just go, oh! I mean, go full Minnesota clan on it. I love this thing. This is so cool.
Instead, outside of serving as a strategic reserve and deterrent.
It seems like there's a second one with that type of frontier.
As such, there were few benefits to
drawn further back.
grander scale weapons platforms under the shadow of the Aries Conventions. So, the great powers of the Inner Sphere devolved into constant, low-scale conflict within the designated rule set.
You know, I was going to make a joke about how I'm sure there's someone back there who's just stocking up on warships. Oh, wait, no, that's a Mars. That's literally a Mars' entire thing. Their entire family did that for, what, centuries? Until they could fuck over everyone. Yeah. So, yeah, that makes sense. Also, kind of surprised only they did it. Just really expecting it was like, okay, here's the warships we're not using. Don't look at them. We're not using them. See? Don't ask why we're having more of them. It kind of surprised me that actually was held to pretty well.
Fighting wars over planets, and mostly sparing populations in the process.
The mostly
For a
part, not
time,
all.
The balance of power was maintained, and war put on a new phase. Whereas some would embrace the stagnation enforced by the Aries Conventions as a sign that perhaps peace or mercantile pursuits would win the day.
No, let's not go that far.
Balance the equation of a nation's primacy among the stars.
Now,
Others would always search for a military advantage.
of course,
and there is
putting
an
a bike.
ancient Terran saying related to that. Beware the military-industrial complex.
Because he was the general who became the president. Ooh, part 2. Mother Doctrine. Wait, Mother Doctrine.
Located
The fuck? I thought I misread that, but no, Mother Doctrine and the balance of power? I'm trying to pull up a reference to what this might be for, but I got no idea at all. I'd assume it's not actually about biological processes, so what the hell?
Across the oldest worlds of mankind was an interplanetary governmental body forged from the ashes of the early Terran Alliance. This nation was called the Terran Hegemony.
Yep.
It was a nation that saw itself not only as the birthplace of humanity,
Technically accurate.
but as the beacon of human civilization.
At least in
and
this time
first
period, yeah.
among equals. It was
And they do
from
call it Terra,
there
good.
humanity took to the stars, and ever since, it has been the hub of human civilization. The oldest and accordingly most developed worlds of the Inner Sphere had a substantial advantage in technology and industrial base, where
Centuries of
other nations
buildup, yeah.
built outward. The hegemony remained mostly interested in developing what territory they had, rather than contest the other powers for unproven worlds and resources. To maintain their place among the great powers over many generations, the Director Generals of the Terran Hegemony
Almost looks like a ski lift because, well,
series of
skis.
policy
It's
decisions
such a high-tech
principally
facility.
aimed to guarantee their status as first among equals.
How are they guaranteeing
This
it?
would primarily be accomplished through what would be called the Mother Doctrine.
Oh, this was theirs.
The Hegemony Research Alliance Department imposed centralized governmental controls over all publicly funded research projects and ensured a massive flow of resources to any development in technology that could.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of surprised that that's where they went. I was honestly thinking the next words out of his mouth were, we're taking control of everything, and then we're going to fuck over everyone else, a la Comstar, which is what I was thinking because that's where they were future-based. But no, they're actually investing in improving themselves, which I thought would happen, but I thought it'd be more fucking over everyone else so they can't catch up. I'm kind of surprised, actually. That's a lot less, ominous than I was expecting.
Could bring power, wealth, or influence to the hegemony, without new worlds or greatly expanding their borders. Their aim was to maintain primacy through sheer technological prowess. And while the initial investments were incredibly expensive, over time, this program was insanely successful in its aim.
Well, they
The
probably should have
technological
expanded more,
boom
maybe
of this program
further away.
Not only raised the standard of
Granted, it wouldn't
living
really
across
work
the hegemony and accordingly
transportation
buy-in
wasn't
from
keeping
the
up with,
populace at large,
or was
but it
exceeding
also afforded unique
communication.
opportunities to the government in exploitable technology products for profitable export. Where other houses were busying themselves with new worlds or fighting over established ones, the hegemony was pushing the boundaries of science and reaping the benefits of universal trade.
Oh, now this is an interesting bit of art. One, yeah, the hegemony basically becoming the technological hub. They're essentially boom version of Tokyo, Japan. They don't have the biggest territory, but they got the best tech. And also, we know that they then have the bust of Japan that came after that, but for different reasons, specifically Amaris for theirs, but that's completely beside the point. This, though, I really like this art because of a few things it does here. One, giant fuck-off cannon, and the guy's in what looks like a spacesuit plugged in, so he's getting all of the controls into his filter, it looks like, from the actual control center. That's really cool. But you can see the overlapping sections here, which means there's almost like a holographic reticle on the actual aperture here. And then it's just a giant fuck-off laser, and it looks like they're either shooting a ship or that's a explosion cloud. I honestly can't go on this one. It could go either way. Either way, though, this looks freaking cool, man. Weird that they have the guy just standing right next to the giant fuck-off gun, but I guess having a person directly plugged in is making it easier to say, hey, we can't be hacked because we literally have our mechs plugged into it. Well, I guess mechanic wouldn't be best to summarize. It's a mech here because mechs are a thing on their own. Whatever.
While staying out of conflict wherever possible, and while mostly maintaining a moderate stance,
Never got
through
those
refereeing
skin-tight skull
conflict
caps.
and standing in as declared neutral observers in wars between other houses as mandated by the Aries Convention, they built an industrial base second to none. The Mother Doctrine was designed to ensure total governmental control over advanced technology.
Oh, Mother Doctrine, Mother World. Because it's their mother world of humanity, the home world. It's where everyone came from. So it's like saying something to the mothership because it's the ship everyone comes from. So it's the mother world because it's the world where everyone comes from. So it's the Doctrine making sure they're the best because everything came from them. Okay, never mind. That makes sense. A little
Technologies in
sure,
the
why not?
public and private sectors for use in the hegemony itself, but it soon grew to encompass the licensing and export of all commercial technology abroad.
Oh.
The official list of sensitive and secret technologies was primarily established to ensure that commercial industry did not leak key technologies which, if acquired by other states of the inner sphere, could potentially act to diminish the great power of the Terran hegemony. Further,
that's pretty general,
by
actually.
selectively allowing these technologies to be licensed and produced elsewhere, the research and development efforts of the hegemony brought tremendous wealth to the government and any corporation who played along. Through economic forces alone, the Terran hegemony had established a means of control over the inner sphere.
It makes everyone like it more.
Many advances in technology were controlled as a hydraulic monopoly, forcing other houses to play along or be cut off as their competitors gained the upper hand. The great houses could either buy in, play nice and gain access to the latest tech, or be blacklisted and have to develop their own from scratch at
I find this absolutely hilarious. Not because of anything Tech said, but because what it implies. They're basically doing a somehow nicer version of what Comstar did. Comstar was, listen to us, or one, we can fuck you over, which you know, but we're not going to say it out loud, or out loud, we'll cut you off from the HPG network, which is something they need because they're kind of fucked if they can't communicate. Here, though, it's literally Earth doing the exact same thing Comstar later did, but instead of doing one specific technology, it's technology across the board, because we'll give it to everyone, but if you don't, we'll give it to them, and not you. And yes, you can still do things, which is the less dickish version, because Comstar will be like, no, you don't get to do things if it's not through us. Right now, it's you get to do things, it just won't work, because we'll give it to the other people, who will then have a polite battle in your face. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's literally the same extortion setup, just with different aspects. I love this. I absolutely love it because it's resembling what comes later, but in just a different enough setting that it seems quite unique. I just love it because you can see how it's connected without being a straight one-to-one repeat. I just love this kind of writing.
Seeing as the other great houses were already involved in trying to make substantial territorial gains at any cost, the prospect of dumping enormous revenue into R&D was less appealing than simply buying what they needed from a mostly impartial, mostly neutral
I mean, because
observer.
they're to themselves
Though
first, yeah.
Not all were pleased by this plan.
And they weren't trying to get
Some
more land.
corporations within the hegemony thought this heavy-handed and began calling the official list the Cameron Blacklist, so named after the Cameron dynasty's rulership of the hegemony, in their own foolishness or simply trying to test the
Oh, that does, oh no. This is a smudged art style. I've seen a lot of it actually used in official paintings that are quite nice. But it only works when you don't have a focal piece that matters. Here, like, see how everyone's smudged in the background? But it doesn't matter. They don't need hyper detail. He's the focal point, and he looks like someone decided to deface a painting with olive oil and maybe some Brillo pads, and then try to touch it up with a 5-year-old's comprehension of color theory. And I know I'm saying that about a black and white painting. I know what I mean here. Yeah. It looks really bad. That's more of an art criticism, though. If he was hyper-focused and everyone else was the same, it'd make perfect sense, but just not like
government's resolve. Corporations began to try to selectively ignore the blacklist,
and they're making him hyper-focused behind it. That doesn't really do the same.
Such companies are now lost to the sands of time.
Price is so low that the Camerons threaten jail time. That's how you know it's good. Discount Dan, super legit corporate assets, liquidation sale, 75% off, microwave parts. Okay, I want to hear this again just because it's funny.
Corporations began to try to selectively ignore the blacklist or clandestinely undermine it.
Yeah,
Such
they
companies are now lost to the sands of time, as the governmental seizure of their assets and treason charges against all involved immediately terminated any
treason
resistance
charge,
to
that's
the
pretty
official
heavy.
Government plan.
Usually treason
And so
is
the Mother
flat out death
Doctrine
if you
was
get caught.
maintained for when given the option of prison or endless profits and guaranteed R&D funding, the choice for
Meat sauce recipe, 10 compelling war crimes. Hockey isn't a sport. No, it's a lifestyle. Regal Cinema Nebula? Melissa Theater? I feel I'm missing something here. Netscape Navigator buys 4 planets. Oh, wow, that's hilarious. Is Netscape even a thing anymore? I want to say no, but I've been told AOL email is still a thing, so people do that. Maybe for all I know, this is a real thing too. Maybe Netscape is still around. I don't know.
Most
kind of funny for this.
Was quite simple. Through effective application of this doctrine, the hegemony maintained its power. Through the control of technology, the hegemony could acquire new resources, worlds, and vast wealth.
Discounts dance, super legal R&D prototypes, and office furniture. Click here. Honestly, considering how expensive office furniture is, maybe the office furniture discount there might be worth it. Just throwing it out there. I've seen the prices, man. There's way too many zeros. Also, Golden Corral, finally rat-free, because we made them part of the sauce.
Without risking
it's funny because it's healthier than actual reality.
Through generous funding of R&D, the standard of living rose on hegemony worlds, ensuring buy-in from the population at large. And if anyone dared to attack, the hegemony maintained a fleet that was the very definition of cutting edge.
I just want to go back a second because cutting edge fleets, man. I just look at this, like, look at this thing. So you got the I'm guessing heat radiators back here, an internal circular device, which is either part of the engine extension or internal gravity simulation, which it's what people usually do when they have circular aspects, trying to spin them around, which I've seen in Harebrained Schemes BattleTech art and in-game to simulate gravity, which kind of works. How well the Coriolis effect actually functions is debatable, because sometimes they just make people nauseous, and that would be bad. But also, just check this out. Like, they have segmented sections here. It almost looks like a gun, or it could be, I don't know, maybe it's not a gun section. It's just a forward viewport. Either way, I don't care. This looks cool. Or maybe it's being built because I have the sections off here. Or is that a probe and an arm? I don't... Oh, God, I love all of this. If anyone knows what this is specifically, if there's like a specific thing, let me know. Spaceships, man!
Further,
I have a
their
time into
observer status
spaceships.
for compliance with the Aries Conventions meant that, above all other things, they knew firsthand the military capabilities.
Oh, he's
of
writing something
every
down
other
as he's looking
great
through the...
house
Oh,
in
viewfinder.
fantastic detail, through periods of extended peace, and through virtually unlimited government funding. The
Damn, that's a
Hegemony
lot.
provided fertile grounds for a weapons revolution. But with the limitations imposed by the Aries Convention, that program would be limited in scope.
Oh, so they
With
got
warships
energy
being
weapons
the
now?
purview of large shipbuilding consortiums and weapons of mass destruction maintained as a deterrent, the only place left a company could innovate was the terrestrial battlefield.
Actually, I would heavily disagree with everything he just said. That is the only way to do it is the terrestrial battlefield. Honestly, I think the way that would be easiest would be less... I actually think doubling down on warships would be the best option here. Not because it would be useful with the terms of base war. If you're trying to engage in the war as a sport war for conquest, yeah, no, you would definitely want to do terrestrial sphere, like is what happens at BattleTech. But honestly, in these kind of restrictions, you'd probably want to double down on warship growth and absolutely monopolize where the Aries Convention allows you still to use nukes, still to use warships, by jumping in a fuck you literal metric ton of all the DACA and saying, okay, I control everything that you could use to get out of system. Because if you do that, no one else can do anything about it. Because at least in this time, they don't have the HPG network. If someone just takes over, they're not going to get caught easily. If they do it fast enough. If they can just get in before anyone can leave and keep people from leaving, and then monopolize the area where nukes are allowed, it would be very easy just to say, this is mine now. I'm not going to land on the ground because I don't need to. Try and leave. And of course, if a war was self-sufficient, they could just like, yeah, cool. But I really heavily doubt that's the case, just because movement of goods in space is what a lot of the corporations, a lot of the houses would want to do, because that usually is how you make money flow easier. Maybe on the periphery would actually work less well, but within the inner sphere, that's probably a very solid option. It would also be a very expensive option and not make allies and probably get you on the blacklist from the Camerons. But also, I think I'm, again, describing what Mars actually did, am I? He literally probably just did this with his family, yeah. Solution in want of a problem?
A series of unrelated technology breakthroughs would pave the way for the greatest revolution in warfighting since man took to the stars.
Ooh.
Myomer, an artificial synthetic muscle, was one of them. Its core value was that for its size and weight, it can move an enormous amount of force so long as it was adequately powered. Being more agile, flexible, and durable than older systems of mechanical movement, industrial applications were...
So these are the older ones, and honestly, these are a lot more similar to what we have nowadays. Essentially, backhoe technology of open and close, which is what you see here. And we actually have, in reality, built giant robots to fight, specifically 2 of them between America and Japan at the beginning of the pandemic, I think in 2020. Maybe it was 2019, but then it actually happened in 2020. I could be mistaken because I'm not sure if it actually happened because of the pandemic. But whatever, just because that is a thing. This is how it would look like in reality. And that's really cool. It's also how nothing in BattleTech is built.
Limitless. December 21st, 2350 saw the ultimate test of this in Project Musclebound.
Oh?
The research lead, a man made wealthy by near endless government funding through hegemony-controlled research grants, was, I shit you.
Really? The mullet? He actually has a mullet? Well, we all know exactly when this art was dreamed up. I'm not sure it came out at that time because I have no idea how long ago anything from pre-Star League era, anything came up, unless this is from later on. He's just repurposing there, which is entirely possible. But it's just, wow. This is literally the Superman chin with the Clark Kent glasses and a mullet. Ugh.
You not Dr. Atlas. Dr. Atlas found out that
Really?
a 10-centimeter thick...
I want to say it's a little on the nose, but sure, why not? Dr. Atlas, the guy who's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders here. Oh my goodness. At some point, the metaphor isn't on the nose. It's punching you in the dick.
2-meter-long bundle of myomer could contract to 1/10 its original size.
Goddamn!
With enough force to destroy the industrial test harness and catapult the test weights across the test area. Needless to say, this is what you call a catastrophic success.
Yeah.
Dr. Atlas earned himself a Nobel Prize for his work and went on to develop God knows what, as history draws a blank at him beyond making artificial muscle breakthroughs. While myomer was a...
Okay, now that is interesting. Sorry, just whenever anyone says, hey, here's the guy who did something really crazy, and then they disappeared. Normally in BattleTech, they have a lot of information about what people did, what they didn't do, where they went, how they died. They're usually good about saying, okay, and this is where this person's storyline ends because they died. Even when they shouldn't, they do that. Even in the prehistory, I think we've got a pretty good deal of that. The fact that Tex is highlighting this specifically is like, he did something amazing. He has a crazy name that's metaphorical as all get out. And then he disappeared. That's just telling me one thing. The writers didn't want to write him out yet. They made a reference to him, and they figured, we can use this later. So let's do nothing with him. And honestly, if they ever want to say, hey, here's this thing that's pretty old, even by Star League standards, but it's from the same guy who created what is basically the basis of giant mechs being a possibility, because current construction methods would just collapse into the weight. They have room to innovate on the lore, to say that he went into hiding, or maybe they didn't want to sell it because it was at a really high level based on the Mother Doctrine, just not putting things out. And would that really work? If you squint, sure, why not? So they have room to work on him. Or maybe there's something that comes up later. Just for all the other main characters who were mentioned, the people who were worth naming, Tex never really highlight, and then they just disappeared. Here, though, because he's doing it, I'm thinking, okay, he knows something, and there's more. Maybe it's speculation. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But that is such a leading thing with a guy whose name is so in your face. There's definitely more that will eventually be done with that guy. When? How? I don't know. But it's just such an open plot thread that someone could pick it up, which is probably the intention of it by a writing standpoint, to say, hey, we'll just use him later. It makes sense.
Godsend for the prosthetic industry. Some thought of other applications.
I mean, prosthetic
finding
industry.
that larger bundles of myomer fiber required extraordinary amounts of voltage to function effectively. Industrial applications seemed to be a natural use for this technology. Soon enough, the reality of agile, controllable, and versatile legged designs resulted in the rise of the industrial mech.
Okay, industrial mechs came first. It makes perfect sense considering that's basically what the current ones actually look like. I'm not joking about that. There's really only one, and it was part of that mech battle brawl I mentioned. And it kind of looked like this, actually. Not like this, but in the bulkiness of it. Also, using them as prosthetics. Considering how crazy some of the medicine, at least in later BattleTech, is, there's a lot they can do with that.
With vast
I'm surprised cyborg technology really didn't kick off to the same extent to the Jihad era.
Of untamed worlds.
Or, yeah,
any industrial vehicle design which enabled rapid mobility across uneven, if not outright hostile terrain, was of tremendous benefit. Where tracked vehicles would bog down or slide, an industrial mech could climb.
Oh, that's cool.
So, where wheeled vehicles found rocky terrain impassable, but at a crawl,
four-armed crawling vehicle
mech could go in easily.
Insectile even.
And like many new and useful technologies of this time, it was rapidly funded and perfected by the hegemony. One such company who made them was lowly Scobell Mechworks. They found significant profit margins in feeding the need for industrial mechs across worlds within the hegemony.
What do they become?
Profits further afield by licensing their advanced designs once blessed by the government to do so. But they saw greater profits still and the possibilities of working for the growing military-industrial complex.
Yep.
And the fat stacks of money that come with it. This is only one of the advanced technologies that the hegemony had funded. 2 others would prove key in the coming weapons revolution. Another of the advanced breakthroughs was the man-machine interface technology currently in its infancy.
Okay, now this is interesting because people keep talking about this, but it's never really been something Tech's brought up. Or they say it kind of exists. And not kind of, it does exist, but I'm really looking forward to just finding out more about that, because how does that work? What does it do? How are they interacting? Where are they plugging in? How does this work, man?
Through advances in small-scale processors and signal interpretation software, it was now possible to seamlessly blend man and machine insofar as input went for command processes.
Oh.
Through this interface, vis-a-vis a neurohelmet, a pilot could drive any war machine by linking themselves to the diagnostic interpretation computer on board. The diagnostic interpretation computer was a godsend in itself. A computer engineered to provide feedback on the status of every single system on board a fighting machine. Through the
Let's be thankful that neurohelmet design has significantly evolved. Oh god, that's actually it? At this point, why give him a faceplate? He looks like Modak. Considering the time frame that this art is most likely from, just judging by the stylistic choices here, this is probably someone who saw some kind of crazy design, I'm assuming out of early, or I guess mid-series Marvel. It was like, yeah, that would work. Yeah.
Neurohelmet, that feedback could then be perceived as a man
that is hard to look at.
Wind on his skin.
Makes his head look even
could see
bigger.
through the sensors, and if someone were to combine that with man-machine interfaces and advanced myomer technology, he could run, jump, and move any war machine as he might his own body. The question now was, how would war change in light of these new technologies? Or more?
I think the weirdest part is, considering how agile they're talking about everything being, that giant-size Avas, like things that are just less the solid walking tanks that are BattleTech mechs generally, but take a Phoenix Hawk and how freaking fast it is, and turn that into a sprinting machine and giant size it. Because if these are so goddamn powerful, it's just weird that that's not actually what they're doing. A mech literally designed to get in there and tear the weapons off other mechs. Because it seems like that is completely within the capabilities as described. I'm assuming something is up, but it just seems almost like this is definitely something they came up with and then refined as an idea later on, huh? When did these fibers, or the fibers, whatever, the myomer, I know I'm mispronouncing it, come into the lore? Were they part of the original ideas, or did they come later?
More accurately,
just cool to see how introduction of thought processes that. Oh God, that is difficult to look at. It's not even just the glasses or the really pinched mouth, the massive oversized chin, the jowls rounding it out, or the fact that the bug-eyed, are they even glasses? Oh no, it looks like dual spectacles because they're not actually over the eyes. He's just mounting them on his nose. And then there's I don't know what that is. It's supposed to be like a flowing mane, but it kind of looks like it's still trimmed to the front. It's like an ascended mullet. The super mullet, the Kamehameha Saiyan of mullets, but bad. So, like the GT version, minus the actual Super Saiyan 5, which was good, but everything else in GT. Oh, wow, that is... Oh, that's his mouth? Oh, I thought that was just part of the mustache and was covered. No, oh. So he's not even doing a full mustache, he's just doing little bits of it. Oh. Someone was really sick. Oh, God.
Who would apply them to change it? Enter Jacob Cameron.
Oh, that's a Cameron? Okay, so that Habsburg abomination was a Cameron. The fuck? Yeah, sorry. Everything about that was just like really tiny mouth, really big jowls, really big chin, bug-eyed glasses. Maybe the eyes are the number, but the glasses make them look huge. The forehead was massive. It looks like someone decided to hit the uncanny valley in every way possible. Not a lot, but just enough that you'd notice it in combination with every other piece. That was nightmare fuel, man. If you walked into that guy in a dark alley, you're like, okay, well, I probably should do something about this. Not alive right now. Seems like the safer choice. Yeah. Oh, God. But honestly, though, those ships that we saw earlier that I honestly and justifiably geeked out over, if anyone knows what those are, let me know, because, oh, hell yes, man. I'm half expecting that if I go up and look on eBay for custom 3D prints of dreadnoughts and warships from BattleTech, will I find them? Because there's crazy amounts of everything based on just how long BattleTech's been around and the fact that the company's fully okay with just doing 3D prints. Could I find warships and old dreadnought designs? I need to go look. Even if I'm wrong and they're not there, I want to find this. Oh my God. Well, I know what I'm going to do tonight. Otherwise, if you guys haven't already, there's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go see if they sell BattleTech dreadnoughts on eBay. Oh, yeah.